My name is Commissioner Frank Avila, and this is Avila, Chicago, Making a Difference. And today our topic is aphasia. And I have with me Dr. Dirk Den Oldham. I have with me a person who has aphasia, Mary Jo Nicholas, and also Chuck Hewitt. And first I'm going to start off with Mary Jo. And Mary Jo, what is your definition of aphasia?
Aphasia, a new word that I learned in 1996. Aphasia means that we have difficult to say words. I did, and I had to learn words all over again because I had an aneurysm operation. It took me many years to speak this level. Aphasia is hard to say words, but thinking for me, all right.
So what you have was not a stroke?
No, it was very, very bad headache, and my son got me to emergency and an operation, and that affected, fortunately, I was not affected badly in many ways, but I had to relearn to speak and read. I still don't spell well, but I didn't before, but I spell worse now. My thinking, fortunately, is all right. I speak, I think now, quite well at maybe good 5th grade level, and at my age, I'm all right.
Now, how long ago did this happen?
1996.
1996, so about 10 years.
Correct.
And how long did it take you to start learning to speak?
Fortunately, for the first 6 months, insurance aided and assisted with speech therapists.
Yes.
But I still was not speaking well, even to read a whole sentence. If I read it, I knew what I was reading, but to speak it, I still had difficult
You mean
time.
the sound would not come out on the different words?
I had to relearn the language. The sound was there. I had to learn alphabet. You know, C could be a K or soft. I had to learn all that all over again, like you learn language.
So what would you tell the audience, the definition of aphasia then?
You search for words.
Search for words?
For me, I'm speaking what now others are affected differently, and Dr. Dirk will be able to tell us more broadly. And
Chuck, you had aphasia also.
Yes.
What is your definition of aphasia?
For me, personally,
And first of all, how long ago did you have it?
15 years ago.
15 years ago. And was it a stroke or what did you have?
Yes, I had a massive stroke.
Massive stroke?
For aphasia, for me, is isolation. When I had 15 years ago, July 99th,
1990, July 1990.
Right. I had a hole in my heart, and I didn't know this at all. It's at birth, and luckily I was fixed it. I was luckily my age was 39. And I physically I was quicker than old age, you know.
Now, Chuck, on therapy, did you had to go to a special therapist?
I had Northwestern speech clinic. I had 8 years practicing speech, twice a week, practicing, and then I finally, Ann Oring, who was the head of the clinic, said that I could. She said that the plateau was finally
You reach your plateau.
Right.
Now, is there any other facilities here in the Chicagoland area besides Northwestern that has therapy for people that have aphasia?
Speech therapists in general. Well, many speech therapists in general.
Hospitals. Everybody, hospitals have that.
So you went to Northwestern because that's where you probably live nearby.
Yes.
And then, how about you, Mary Jo? What hospital did you go to for your therapy?
No, I had Lutheran General Hospital connected me with a speech therapist that I had her for 6 months, insurance paid for it. And then eventually, though, you have to find out yourself the best way to help with your language. Different folks in different ways. My speech therapist was great to encourage me to try myself new ways, which I did for myself.
By the way, Northwestern Clinic is the finest, you know, it's convenient for me to, you know, Evanston, but it's, you know.
Yes, they're well known
yes.
for their speech therapists. I think if people have problems in their speech, they do have a lab there. They do have research. And this is where Dr. Oldham comes into. Right now, you're a professor at Northwestern, or do research work?
I'm a researcher. I'm not a professor. But
researcher. Yeah. Now, why did you pick aphasia to study?
I started out studying linguistics, which is concerned with the structure of language and how you describe it. But then looking at the breakdown of language also tells you about what language is. And then later on, the interest became focused on how to improve language after it breaks down. That's what I came to do here at Northwestern. Language is a very complex system that involves many different capacities. And it's vital for our daily communication with the world outside. So that's why I became interested.
Now, how long have you been doing research in aphasia?
About 10 years.
About 10 years?
Yeah. And then I became involved, or I was asked to come here to work at the Aphasia Neurolinguistics Research Lab at Northwestern. And that lab is well known. It's headed by Professor Cynthia K. Thompson, and it's been funded by the NIH for more than 15 years. So it's well known, and it's one of the few labs that specifically does research on the treatment of aphasia and looking at different ways to treat the language impairment in terms of language complexity. So we look at it from a certain perspective that is different from what you might usually find in clinics.
Now, we had Chuck. Chuck mentioned that he had a stroke.
Right.
And then after the stroke, he had aphasia. He couldn't talk. Mm-hmm. He couldn't speak. He couldn't pronounce the words. We had Mary Jo that did not have a stroke.
Right.
She had an aneurysm. And after that, she couldn't speak.
Yes.
What is, and so we had two different definitions of...
There's one more.
There's one more?
One more could happen with someone very, very bad hurt in the head, right around where So there's 3 different
By
ways.
hurt, what do you mean by hurt?
Car accidents.
Car
or-
accident,
okay.
or
Bumped your head?
or a rock,
A rock?
or very, very bad.
So-
3 different ways people can get aphasia.
And so it affects the brain.
And
now,
not all strokes,
Not
not
all
all strokes. Just depends.
now, what is your definition of aphasia,
Well,
doctor?
You've already heard it. In a way, the definition of aphasia is not so much to do with how it came about. It's a language impairment in adults, so it's different from children.
Yeah.
In adults, that happens after what we call focal brain damage. So that's brain damage aimed at a specific or damage in a specific area in the brain. So if there is damage due to disease that affects the whole brain, we don't call it aphasia, because that will affect many different capacities of the people involved. In aphasia, we're talking about a language disorder, and this is very important to understand, that it's not a disorder that affects other cognitive abilities. So people have healthy minds,
Yes.
but they are unable to express themselves, or they have difficulty in understanding speech.
So
This is also why, sorry,
no, go on.
but this is also why it's it can be isolating, as Chuck said. That's a very good term, because if people don't know about aphasia and they meet an aphasic person, they will make assumptions, assuming that there's some mental illness involved, or
Yes.
and that's not the case. So in that sense, it's important to raise the awareness.
Yeah, because a person could have aphasia and had a stroke, but he has a hard time pronouncing the words or getting the words out because his brain isn't functioning properly to dictate to that whatever makes him talk,
Yeah, exactly.
to have the words come out fluently. Is that what I hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Has many different kinds,
Many-
because language, as I said, is a complex system. So you can have a disorder in the speech production or only in comprehension of speech, but also reading or writing may be affected in different
Or
ways.
numbers.
Yeah, or
Some
numbers.
numbers.
Yeah, and it may be so severe that you can hardly communicate at all. So you've also
So
have different
severe?
levels of severity.
Speech.
Now, is there such a thing as statistics showing fully recovering or recovering so a person could speak? What is a recovering percentage for a person that has aphasia?
It's difficult to say because it depends on your definition of recovery. We find in our lab, in the research that we do, that recovery doesn't ever have to end. That's also very important, and it gives hope to some speakers with aphasia. But you also have to acknowledge that in most of the time it doesn't become perfect as it was before the stroke, but improvement does continue.
And so this is why I brought Northwestern, why you went to Northwestern, because they have a laboratory and doing research work for aphasia.
Yes.
And how many other institutions here in the Chicagoland area has a research for aphasia?
Well, the research for aphasia, I don't really know how many other labs there are at other universities. The research that's going on in our lab, in the Aphasia Neurolinguistics Research Lab, is specifically aimed at the treatment. And different labs may have a different focus of their research interest. So there may be labs that are interested more in the language aspect, and others are more interested in psychological aspects or daily communication. We treat aphasia from a linguistic perspective, and our treatment is aimed at improving sentence building mostly. So.
Yes, Mary Jo?
One of the, I'm delighted what Dirk is saying, but also I think what's exceptionally important with people with aphasia, deep aphasia, if they've had a stroke, a problem, many of the loving family caregivers don't realize that the person is thinking all right, but that person can't say well. It's just unfortunate that they really don't understand the word aphasia, which is different than just totally losing everything.
Right. Now, how many people are affected by aphasia?
Well, each year in the United States, about 700,000 people have a stroke.
700,000 have a stroke?
And then 475,000 of those people survive. And of those people, about 100,000 persons have aphasia. So now in the United States, there's over 1 million speakers with aphasia, which is more than people with Parkinson's disease or cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy. So in that sense, it's frustrating that
we all hear
more people who know about it, right?
Yeah, we all hear about the other diseases or that one has, but when we mention aphasia, I mean, when they tell me, Frank, you're going to do a show on aphasia, and when I heard the word aphasia, one of my assistants says, well, it's probably from Walt Disney. They're going to talk about some movie that he put out, aphasia. But now, because very few people know about aphasia, maybe the insurance company doesn't even know about it.
Oh, yes.
They know about it?
In my time, in '96, I received 6 months insurance to aid me with speech therapy help. Nowadays, if they help, it's maybe, if they're lucky, 3 weeks insurance help for speech therapy. And unfortunately, many folks that have strokes with many problems in the body, they're more concerned about aiding and assisting the body at that point to really understand about helping and aiding long-term speech therapy. That's what's so unfortunate.
Chuck, on your aphasia, did you find that your family helped you along also? Because this must be a big effect on your family too.
No, I had just Margaret. Margaret Cooks, but she was Margaret Orsinger. She was a very, very kind friend, and many years. And then I had a stroke, and so Margaret took in to take care of me.
Oh, excellent. Because how about you, Mary Jo? Do you have a family that catered to you? Because, you know, to improve on your speech, take you to your sessions.
Bless my children. Bless that they were very helpful. But I have strong personality, and my work, driving, everything okay, thinking fine, but I couldn't say the sentence if I would be trying to tell them about and it would be the table, but they would finish my sentence, which after a while irritated me. And what I liked the best was to be with my little grandchildren, the 3, 4, 5-year-old, because I would be working with or talking with them or reading them a little book and have a hard time. And they would help me with a word, and we both would clap that we're happy. They would help me with a word, but they would not finish my sentence. So I'd love to be with the little ones to help me with words those years. Now, bless, 10 years later, I'm all right. Although my children are, say, mom or grandma's around, and we're going to play
Charades?
Charades. Grandma's here. We're going to play charades.
Now, Chuck, being that you mentioned that you had your friend helping you, then you must have some type of support group that you belong to. Are there, the Heart Association has a support group. Everyone has a support group. Chuck, what support group do you belong to?
Probably Northwestern.
So Northwestern is your support group.
Yeah.
And
yes.
and does
I had 3 months in the hospital and 2 months in a place for Meadowbrook of Chicago, and it was like it's defunct now. It's a housing for car accidents and some head shots and some strokes. It's living quarters, and they had supervisors also. So it's like relearning to boil an egg and get on to life. And then afterwards, the insurance stopped. I had to do Northwestern because I had to still practice speech.
Now, Dr. Oldham, do you at Northwestern are you starting a support group for aphasia?
Yeah, we have been having a support group specifically for aphasia, which is different from stroke support groups that are also around. So our support group is aimed specifically at speakers with aphasia. They get together and talk amongst themselves.
And our caregivers.
And the caregivers.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The caregivers are
important.
It's a very lively group. So it's most of the people are younger than 65, but it does reach up. And many people have had to give up careers. So they have lots of things to talk about. Not only their aphasia, but very often also they help each other out.
So if there's anyone in the Chicagoland area, in our 6th county area, if they need a support group, they could contact Northwestern Aphasia Department,
yes,
give them a call and say, look, I'd like to join your support group.
Yes, they could.
Mm-hmm. Now, besides your support group, are you sponsoring any conference for, let's say, people maybe throughout the country, throughout the United States, that want to come to a conference to learn more about aphasia, the caregivers, or the person that has aphasia? Are there any conference that you're going to start?
Yes, there is. I'm glad you brought it up. We have the lab and the support group sponsor a conference that will be held in September 2006. It's the Midwest Regional Aphasia Conference, and it's organized mostly by people who have aphasia. So it's, the organization is in the hands of the members of the support group mostly. So with a little help from family sometimes, or friends, or the caregivers. They have been organizing that. And,
now, is this your first conference, or do you have other conferences?
I think there have been other conferences. This is the first, I think, in which is a regional conference.
A regional conference?
For people and by people with aphasia.
Now, regional, how far is your region? Is it the 6 counties or the 6 states surrounding?
States.
States?
States. We went 2 years ago to a regional conference in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yes.
And it was delightful. And bless Northwestern University and Janet O'Connor had decided that we would have a conference here, large, for and bring together aphasia community all over Midwest. And September 15th to the 17th. 15th,
16th, 17th, so you'll have workshops. The conference will cover how a caregiver could help, how a patient could take different therapists.
It's a broad range of subjects.
Will be coming.
Neurologists coming, speakers who will be. We have experts on vocational rehabilitation, alternative medicine. One of the speakers is the director of our lab, Dr. Cynthia Thompson, who will talk about new methods for therapy. So that should also be interesting.
And what I have also seen and observed at conferences, it's also good for the caregivers and the family to come, because they need to hear broadly how to help and aid aphasia folks.
Now, if someone wants to join your support group,
oh, bless them.
do they call Janet O'Connor?
Yes, they do.
And do they call her at a number of 467-7591? That's Janet O'Connor. And they could call her, and anyone that wants to join the aphasia support group could call her and join.
Or if you're interested in the conference.
Or is interested in the conference.
Either or. Our aphasia meeting, conference, community meeting is the second Saturday of every month from
10:30 to 12?
10:30 to 12.
And that's at Northwestern University?
Correct.
The Evanston campus.
Evanston
In
campus.
Evanston, yes, and it's a delight for the folks, for us aphasia folks, to come together, and caregivers, family. It's great.
Yeah, strange that you mentioned that you have 1 million people here in the United States that has aphasia. Are majority of them under 65, or what's the youngest one? Do you have young kids that are considered aphasia?
It depends on your definition, and the definition is not the same for
Not the
everyone.
same for everyone?
In my definition, aphasia starts with adults, or from 16 years on, after acquiring language. So if a child has brain damage when it is still acquiring language, I would call it a language. It's a different thing.
I think myself.
But maybe Chuck has a...
I think myself. It's young people have strokes.
Right.
And it's the same for us to, disability. You know, for my person and the young people also.
You're exactly right. I was thinking from a research perspective, but you're right that the problems
But I do
in
think
communication are exactly the same for young people who have it, so the definition doesn't matter.
So on aphasia, on the treatment, there's no chemical treatment to help them. It's only therapy type of treatment.
activity, some way, somehow.
Exercising, walking, or eating the proper food, or does all of this have some type of therapy help to help them speak properly?
It's in your brain. That's the key.
The key to the brain. I mean, is there any type of injection of a medicine to give them, or pills? No, nothing. It's just how to heal that brain.
Right.
Well, how you have to become more active. Different aphasia folks, different ways. You have to either force yourself to read aloud, even though it's hard to read. You just must, like if you're in kindergarten and learning.
I like to mention about your conference. I like the conference because it's very important here in the Midwest, or maybe throughout the United States. People want to fly in.
Oh.
And they should attend your conference.
We welcome.
Your conference again is September 15, 16, 17 at the Northbrook Hilton, and it's sponsored by Northwestern Hospital.
And we're raising funds right now.
And we're raising funds.
So and it's going well. So we're trying to keep the costs down for everyone who can come, so that it's open to anyone.
Everyone, anyone, the family could come, right?
Yes.
And as you mentioned, there'll be a caregiver session. It'd be a patient's session, a lot of different topics, and it's going to run all day.
And we have speakers with aphasia, so it's not only people speaking to.
But we will, yes, that's right. We're going to have speakers that have.